What's going on, guys? Welcome into this episode of the Chiefs Zone Podcast. My name is Farzin Vasugi, and happy Wednesday to all of you. Hope you're all staying warm as we are in the aftermath of a winter weather, Arctic blast, whatever you want to call it. I guess we're getting another one of those very soon. Yeah, that's winter for you here in Kansas City. Yeah, that's how it works sometimes. But nonetheless, we are here. We are back on once again. And listen, the Chiefs are not in the playoffs, but this has been a very busy month of the Chiefs Zone Podcast. And I really appreciate all of you guys tuning in, coming on here, locking in to the podcast, whether you're watching live or you're watching it later. There are a lot of people who watch live, but there are also a lot of people who are tuning in the archive version lately, whether it's on Facebook, YouTube, X, or on the audio versions. Apple, Spotify. I greatly appreciate all of you guys. This really has been a raucous January. Listen, I'll say this because you always have to prepare for the unexpected. Expect the unexpected sometimes. Certainly did not expect the Chiefs to miss the playoffs, but I certainly did not expect it to still be this busy. So that really means a lot from me to you guys. And listen, there's a lot to get into. We're going to talk about Eric Bieniemy and the press conference he had today. Had a lot of great things to say today, at least I thought, and I hope that certainly will intrigue you guys as well. I'll share some of those clips in just a moment. The Kansas City Royals have a little bit of an update on their stadium situation. Clark Hunt did an interview with NFL Network. He had a lot to say about Travis Kelce, Patrick Mahomes, the team attempting to bounce back. Also talked about their stadium moving to Kansas. So we'll react to that later on as well. Creed Humphrey in the news today for good reason. And Hall of Fame drama in the NFL. How about that? We are going to get into all of that and more here on this episode of the Chiefs Zone Podcast. I want to let you know this podcast is brought to you by SeatGeek. That's where I go to for all of my sports ticketing needs, concerts, whatever it is you want to attend. Go to SeatGeek. They'll have it for you. And if you're a new SeatGeek customer, you guys can use my promo code Farzine. That's going to save you $20 off your first order from SeatGeek. So go to SeatGeek.com, get your tickets at checkout. Do not forget, put in my promo code Farzine. That'll save you $20 off your first order from SeatGeek. All right, let's get right into it. Very little time to waste. A lot to get into tonight. Let's start with Eric Bieniemy, as it's now been about a week and a half that we've learned that he is going to be the offensive coordinator of the Kansas City Chiefs, coming back for a second stint with this football team. Of course, he was the offensive coordinator of the Chiefs from 2018 to 2022. 5 years straight, and the Chiefs ranked in the top 6 in total offense and points scored. Now, as we all know, in the last 3 years under Matt Nagy as the offensive coordinator, the Chiefs' offense has not even been close to the same. They've been either 9th or worse in total offense, or they've been 15th or below in scoring. That is not good, especially when you have Patrick Mahomes as your starting quarterback. Numbers should certainly be much higher than that. Listen, Eric Bieniemy had a lot of good things to say in this press conference that he did with the media through Zoom. And I'll play a couple of those clips for you. Something that just I picked up on, because Andy Reid did a press conference on Monday, and he used the word fired up, the words fired up multiple times to express his excitement for Eric Bieniemy coming back. I like that. What is there not to like about it? But there was something a little different from Eric Bieniemy today when he used the word fired up on multiple occasions during his press conference with the media. And I don't know what it was, man. Like, look, Andy Reid, he's a soft-spoken guy. He'll give you some information when you ask for it, but he won't give away too much. And I don't want to call it a monotone attitude, but he keeps it very low key. Eric Bieniemy just seemed extremely jovial in his press conference today. And that excited me. Right off the bat, says hello to the media, and he says, good to see some familiar faces, calls out a couple of the media members by name. So he still remembers some of the media guys here in Kansas City, which is good. I mean, he really seemed happy to be talking to the local media. Now, I'll be honest, I have not watched any media from Eric Bieniemy in Chicago, assuming the position coaches do media from time to time for the Chicago Bears. I know every team may operate differently, but Eric Bieniemy just seemed really excited to be back in Kansas City. And like I said, he used the words fired up on multiple occasions, to the point where there was one point where he was talking kind of in a rhythm with everything he was talking about. And he says his phone, someone texted him or something. And so he got distracted by that. And then he lost his train of thought. And he does this thing. And we've all been in this situation before in conversation where he looks down. He's trying to remember what in the hell he was talking about. And then he looks up at his camera and says, I'm just fired up to be back, y'all. It's like he's really glad to be back. He said that he did have a chance to speak to Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce. Take that for what it's worth, because I know everyone makes a big deal about Kelce. Last week, Kelce made a comment that he's excited to see EB back in the building. That seemed to be the unintentional confirmation that he is coming back for a 14th season. Bieniemy made it very clear that when he spoke to Mahomes and Kelce, that it was non-football related conversations. Probably just catching up, hey, how are you? How are the kids? How's the wedding coming along? Probably those kinds of things, which is far more common than I think people realize. A lot of these coaches, teammates, former teammates that don't work together anymore, but still have a close relationship, they keep in contact often. They don't talk about football as much as I think a lot of us might think, but neither here nor there. So Eric Bieniemy was just talking about how he spoke to Mahomes and Kelce. I think the question, I believe, came from Vahe Gregorian. I could be wrong about who may have asked that. And by the way, we do got to talk about Vahe because he did weigh in on the whole Hall of Fame drama, and we'll get into that later on. But it was nice to see that he had to hear that he had a conversation with both Mahomes and Kelce. And again, my favorite part was him just losing his train of thought and forgetting what he was trying to say, and he just covered it up by saying, "Oh, well, you know what? I'm just excited to be back. I'm fired up. It's listen, this is the move that I wanted Kansas City to make. This was my number one pick. I mean, if I told you as a fan, what would make me the happiest to see the Chiefs for their offensive coordinator, like who would they get? This is the guy who I wanted. I've been telling you guys this for several months now, and this is who they got. This is exactly who they got. Eric was asked, by the way, props to the media. Sometimes I get critical of the local media with certain questions. I thought every single question asked today was great from the media. The only criticism I have, I was actually a little surprised there wasn't a question about Chad O'Shea. My guess is because Andy Reid kind of rejected a question, because one of the questions building up was, it's unofficial, but, and Andy Reid interrupted and said, well, don't ask if it's not official. I know Dana White of the UFC, he's very similar in that regard as well, where if something's not official, he doesn't want to hear any questions about it. So I get it. They can't really say things until certain things are done with contracts and whatnot. I get it. Maybe the media or the PR people told the media, hey, we can't answer certain questions that are not verified yet, I guess, or official. But Eric Bieniemy was asked a lot of really good questions today by the media. One of the questions was how much he has changed over the last 3 years being away from the Chiefs, being at Washington, UCLA, and Chicago. Here's his answer on that.
Well, I'll say this. There's some things about me that have changed, but more than anything, EB is EB. We will still be disciplined and detailed in everything and how we handle our business. There's a standard of performance. There's a standard of excellence that'll be expected. But on top of that, there's been a great deal of wealth that I've learned, through the good and through the bad. And the thing that I appreciate is just helped me to grow into this role and have this opportunity to be in this situation again.
Look at that smile. Look how excited he is to be back. Look at that. Is this not the face of someone that really wanted to be back here in Kansas City? Look, we all know why he left. Because I see these comments on social media. Oh, why did EB leave? Why did the Chiefs let him go? Neither of those things happened. EB, yes, he did leave. But it wasn't, he didn't leave because he hated Kansas City. He left because teams were not hiring him. And my theory is that teams were afraid of hiring an offensive coordinator that was surrounded by Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce. And no, he obviously was not the play caller here, nor was Matt Nagy, but we have seen non-play calling offensive coordinators get head coaching jobs before. You don't see it often, but we've seen it before. So, but I digress. He said EB is still EB. And he talked about the discipline and the excellence that's going to be expected. Music to my ears, man. I mean, if you're a Chiefs fan, I don't know how you can have issue with any of that stuff right there. This one is another, it's one of those golden audio clips that the media certainly is going to keep. You know how some producers on the radio, they have these drops they put from time to time during a show. Eric Bieniemy said he feels like a kid in the candy store being back. That is one of those drops that I think a lot of radio producers are going to keep and use from time to time when applicable on the radio. But here's Eric Bieniemy just basically expressing his excitement being back here in Kansas City.
Having this opportunity to come back and be put in this chair with Coach Reid, that was just something that it's tough to pass upon, So with all that taking place, I'm excited. I'm fired up. It was one of them deals that happened fast, and I'm looking forward to it. I just drove in yesterday. I waited out the storm, so I'm here. Now I'm going off a few hours of sleep, but more than anything, I'm just excited and fired up about the opportunity. I feel like a kid in a candy store, I don't know if you guys can hear the nervous energy in my voice. I'm just excitement.
I love that, man. I love that. That's what we want. Listen, is he not saying all of the right things in that moment? Because, and the reason I say this is because we've all, you, me, every other member of Chiefs Kingdom complained about some of the comments Andy Reid has made in some press conferences this year about how we need to clean things up and we need to get better here and do this. It just felt like Andy Reid was doing a copy and paste with his press conferences during the second half of the season. And a lot of people were irritated with some of the things Andy Reid had to say. Listen, press conferences don't really do much for me personally. Sure, there are some certain questions that need to be asked, but I think you also know, especially if you've ever watched a Bill Belichick press conference, sure, there are certain questions that the media is expected to ask, but you also know that Belichick's probably going to be very tight-lipped or just not even answer the question. Andy is kind of the same way, but he's not, I don't want to call it condescending, but he'll give the media a little something, but he won't give too much. And I think, certain words that he's just been repetitive with in his press conferences after losses during the second half of the season infuriated a lot of Chiefs fans. Look, I don't know, because sometimes, coaches, players, they say things, people want them to answer for things, but then they do and people aren't happy with it. Now, I get it. This is not a press conference after a loss. This is a press conference after it's been officially confirmed that he's now the offensive coordinator of the Chiefs. So you can't really go wrong with something like this. But there were a couple of questions about the offense and the struggles and how do you overcome the issues over the last couple of years. Anything and everything Eric Bieniemy said, I think certainly has to be music to every Chiefs fan's ears. I mean, you have to like what he had to say. Do you not? It just seemed like he gave you all the right answers. That felt pretty good to hear. And the part where he was talking about, the expectation with excellence, that's going to be the standard, that kind of thing. EB is EB. We all know what that means. And listen, we had Jason Dunn on the podcast last week, and I straight up asked him, I said, how does an offensive coordinator hold players accountable? Specifically referring to EB. Because the question was, for several months here in Kansas City, well, Matt Nagy is not holding them accountable, whereas EB did. And I remember Jason's answer was a pretty good one in that EB is the type of coach where he doesn't care if you're the best player on the team or the 53rd player on the team. He is going to tell you like it is. He's going to be in your face. He's going to let you know about it because he demands a lot out of you. Whereas Matt Nagy is more nurturing and more calm about the situation and will say, hey, let's figure it out. So I think that's and there was another part, and I don't have the audio clip for this, but I think it was Sam McDowell of the Kansas City Star who was asking about some of the offensive issues. And he says, well, that's why we're the coaches. That's what we get paid to do. It's our job to figure out the solution to things and how to answer for them. How do you not like any of those answers? Here's my thing. Like I told you guys, this was my number one choice to replace Matt Nagy. And the Chiefs went and got him. As soon as Chicago's postseason ended, Andy Reid didn't waste any time, and Bieniemy even alluded to it. And on top of that, like I said, this is what I wanted. And this actually fired me up more. Eric Bieniemy and Andy Reid on Monday, they kept using the term fired up. This has me fired up now. I was excited when they brought him back. Now I'm more excited. And look, press conferences usually don't do much for me, but this one just felt different. There was just something different about Eric Bieniemy. And by the way, let's not forget, after he was let go by Washington, as well as the rest of the coaching staff, he actually came back. I can't remember if it was before the AFC Championship game or if it was before the divisional round game, either before visiting Buffalo or visiting Baltimore. He actually came back and spoke to the team. I think it was right before the AFC Championship game. And I don't know exactly what was said, and I was kind of hoping someone in the media would have asked that. But he's still well connected with this team. Look, I know there's this narrative out there that he doesn't like Patrick and Patrick doesn't like him and they can't coexist. No, none of that's true. Would the Chiefs have brought him back if any of that was true? There's no way in hell they would have done that. Absolutely not. Look, here's my thing. At the end of the day, if you want to criticize Eric Bieniemy for what happened in Washington and UCLA, fine, do it all you want, but I'll still come back with the same comments. And I responded to someone today on this, and they didn't really give me much of a response other than, oh, you're just defending him, which isn't really, not really much of a valid conversation then at that point. But the defense I have for Bieniemy about UCLA and Washington, first of all, everyone in Washington got fired. It wasn't just Eric Bieniemy. And the quarterback he had to work with, Sam Howell, they let him go too. There's a reason why they drafted Jaden Daniels. This would be a much different conversation if Bieniemy did coach Jaden Daniels and he was awful, but then was much better when Dan Quinn got there. It'd be a much different conversation. And then as far as UCLA goes, look, I don't follow college football closely, so without looking it up, I couldn't tell you who plays on UCLA this year or the year before when Bieniemy was there the year before. What I can tell you is they did fire their head coach, and their overall win-loss record was worse this year. I think they were 5-7 with Bieniemy. They were 3-9 this year. So listen, Bieniemy wasn't the solution at those two locations, but he also was not the problem either. I mean, there was more than one person who lost their job at both locations, and Bieniemy was not the sole guy. Like, it'd be a much different story if Washington and UCLA with the same group of players got way better after Bieniemy left. Be a much different conversation, but that's not how it went down. And again, I've told you guys, 9th or lower in total offense under Nagy, 15th or lower in total points. But with Bieniemy, top 6 in both categories for 5 years straight. The last time they were top 6 in both of those categories in consecutive years, you have to go back to the Dick Vermeil era. For, I think it was 4 years in a row, they were top 5 in total offense and points scored. I mean, and pre-Patrick Mahomes, that was viewed as the glory days of Chiefs offense in Kansas City. I mean, no, they didn't win any playoff games, but that was the most fun I think any of us had watching Chiefs football on the offensive side. So the fact that the Chiefs have, a generational talent like Patrick Mahomes, you can't be wasting his years like that. You have to maximize his potential as well as the rest of the offense in its potential every year, as long as you have Patrick Mahomes. And the Chiefs failed at that the last 3 years. That's why they brought back Eric Bieniemy, because they know what worked. And by the way, for those who are, big on the whole, we need something new, we need something fresh. Well, Bieniemy talked about new ideas and what he had learned over the years. Hey, look, you don't go to 3 different places in 3 years and not learn anything new. You absolutely, especially under Ben Johnson, who I don't think is going to win Coach of the Year, but certainly should be in the conversation for that. I mean, I think Coach of the Year is going to be between Vrabel and McDonald. And keep in mind, not because they're in the Super Bowl, these votes were cast the Monday immediately after the regular season concluded, because all of these awards are based on regular season performances and had nothing to do with postseason performances. But it just so happens that, in my opinion, the top 2 candidates, McDonald and Vrabel, are going to end up in the Super Bowl. But I think right behind those two, I think Ben Johnson should be the most considered coach after those two, because they do have you do a first, second, third place vote and whatnot. I think it's a little different for MVP. I think they asked for 5 votes, a first, second, third, fourth, and fifth place vote, but neither here nor there. So surely Bieniemy had learned a lot from someone who was a great offensive coordinator under Dan Campbell and was a good head coach, a great head coach in his first year with Chicago, helping them turn their season around. I think some people expected that turnaround in Chicago, but not to the extent to what we saw this past year with that football team. So I'm excited to see what opportunities, what ideas Bieniemy is going to bring here, especially working with guys that he's never worked with before, like Xavier Worthy, Rashee Rice, hopefully Tyquan Thornton. We'll see who they bring back. Probably Travis Kelce going to come back. Kareem Hunt, maybe he comes back to play with EB one more year. Pacheco, I know a lot of people prefer to move on from that, but he's played at least one season under Bieniemy. So I'm not going to completely dismiss the possibility of Pacheco coming back. I don't think it happens. I want to be very clear, but I'm not going to dismiss that possibility either. I think it's a good hire. I think it's a great reunion, and I think it's going to lead to great things in 2026. All right, let's move along here and talk about Clark Hunt, who spoke to the media, specifically spoke to NFL Network. He was promoting the 101 Awards that will be coming up later this offseason. And Clark Hunt was asked a lot of things. Was asked about Travis Kelce. and mentioned that Kelsey had another good season. Obviously, was not on par with where he was 4 or 5 years ago, but still had over 800 yards and was one of the leaders on the offensive side of the football. He was very low key with this answer. Basically said, hey, we know he's got a busy offseason with his marriage and whatnot. Now, to be clear, yes, I get it. He and Taylor, I mean, they are A++ celebrities, so they might not have the typical average marriage. I mean, it's got to be over the top for sure. Somebody was commenting saying Kelsey's not going to come back. His wedding's in June, right before training camp. I mean, listen, his wedding's not the night before training camp. And the person responded back to me and said, yeah, but they're not going to have the average honeymoon. They're going to have one of those over-the-top honeymoons. But listen, A++ celebrities will do their own thing. I get that. Clark Hunt made it very clear he wants to be respectful, but he did also make it very clear that the Chiefs do want him back. Now, easier said than done because the Chiefs have to figure out all the salary cap situation. Now, I'll say this, because they're right now over $60 million, $60 million over the cap. Now, I don't think Clark Hunt would have given this answer if he had not spoken to Brett Veach about this salary cap situation specifically. Surely that means he spoke to Brett Veach, and Veach has figured out a little formula to be able to make it feasible for Travis Kelce to come back. That's the way I see it. So he spoke about Travis Kelce. He was also asked about Patrick Mahomes and his recovery. He mentioned that he actually was in the training facility and did see Patrick Mahomes in the training room. I mean, listen, I thought he gave a fairly generic answer on this, talking about how his work ethic is to his advantage and that, he's someone who has healed quickly in the past and is certainly going to do anything and everything to be ready for the 2026 season opener. So didn't really say too much on that in terms of insight that we may have not heard before. He did talk about the team and just, not having the season they usually have where they're getting ready for an AFC championship around this time of year or getting ready to go to a Super Bowl. But he did say that we still have Andy Reid and a really outstanding coaching staff. We're going to work very hard in 2026 to make sure that we are part of the playoffs and hopefully part of the Super Bowl. I mean, listen, I think he dropped those expectations loud and clear. Playoffs, hopefully a Super Bowl. Listen, making a Super Bowl is not easy. And the Chiefs have made it to 5 Super Bowls in the last 8 years, including this year. Listen, there's nothing easy about making it to 5 Super Bowls. I know the big knock on Buffalo is they don't have a Super Bowl, but going to 4 Super Bowls is no easy. There's nothing easy about making 1 Super Bowl, nor should it ever be easy. Even on a quote-unquote down year, there's nothing easy ever about playing 2 to 3 playoff games and reaching that big game. And the Chiefs have done it 5 times with this core unit. That's not easy. So the expectation is, got to be playoffs next year. And hopefully there is a playoff appearance included in that. Now, this is, I think, something that a lot of people are wanting to hear more about. Clark Hunt was asked about the stadium situation, talked about how he's very excited for the opportunity to build a new stadium, a state-of-the-art dome stadium is what he called it, in KCK. Mentioned that Arrowhead, tremendous facility, place they love for 50 years, but the opportunity to build a new dome stadium does give the region an opportunity to, and I think he kind of misspoke on this, host an AFC championship game. Obviously, that's hoping that you continue to find yourself at that point and also be able to host that game. He also mentioned being excited about hopefully hosting the Super Bowl, a Final Four, as well as the college football playoffs. Now, I said this before, and I know bowl games kind of have a new meaning right now with teams opting out, and you kind of see teams in bowl games that you normally would not expect. I've said that at the very least when it comes to the college football postseason. I think this new Kansas City Stadium can find a way to acquire at least one bowl game I've always said every year, but perhaps every other year. I mean, I guess maybe they might be in rotation. Clark Hunt is making a verbal bid for the college football playoffs. That's a pretty big ask there. Now, listen, we got to be honest here. Kansas City, middle of the country. Some people call it flyover country. Sure, fair enough. But at the end of the day, it's also, especially with the new airport and more destinations, more hub opportunities with the new KCI airport that's a few years old now. And one other thing, it's in the middle of the country. So it is perhaps easier, whether you're traveling by air or you're going on a road trip, to come to Kansas City for a bowl game potentially. That is, I think, something to consider. I know a lot of times, I think with these college bowl games, one big frustrating thing is if a team that's on the West Coast, they've got a game on the other side of the country, you probably won't have a lot of fans be willing to make that trip. But if it's half of that, you might see a little bit more than what you would usually expect. Maybe much more. I don't know. But certainly that opens up the door for opportunities like that. And listen, Clark Hunt did say college football playoffs. I can't say I thought about the college football playoffs. That's not something that I had in mind. But hey, listen, you're going to build a state-of-the-art stadium. You're being given a lot of money by the state of Kansas. I've always said all along, if the Chiefs are going to do this, fine, make sure you do it right. Make this the best thing possible. That's why I think a lot of people were frustrated a month ago when the Chiefs officially made their announcement for this move. And I think it was Mark Donovan I can't remember if it was Mark Donovan or Clark Hunt. One of them said that this is going to be a 60,000 to 65,000 seat stadium. Oh, yeah. No, thank you to that. Give me more. With the money they're about to spend, they can do more. They can absolutely do more. Mickey says, sorry, but all Clark Hunt sees is money. Name me one owner that doesn't. Listen, I know a lot of people are not happy about Arrowhead going away. Listen, I don't care if you're on the Kansas side or the Missouri side. No one's happy to see Arrowhead now have 5 years left, unless they find a way to do something else with that stadium. But all expectations are that they're going to demolish that. Now, I will say this. What owner would have rejected this offer? And I know the state of Kansas, there are a lot of questions as to whether or not this is feasibly even possible. Well, I guess we'll find out in the coming days. The Lieutenant Governor, David Tolan, he was pretty optimistic that this is all doable and it will be done and there won't be a tax increase. Okay, we'll see. But you can't deny the fact that Clark Hunt, I mean, he accepted an offer that everyone else was going to accept. Anybody that would have been in Clark Hunt's position, they would have accepted that. You can't convince me otherwise. Name me one sports team in America, an sports ownership group that would have rejected that offer. There's no way. No one would have done that. Nobody. So we heard Clark Hunt give his comments on the stadium. He also said in that interview, he talked about how the Chiefs have been talking to architectural firms and they've narrowed it down to two. Both of them happen to be local firms in Manica and Populous. I believe Populous built the Sporting KC Stadium. Don't quote me on that. I know Populous had a hand in the Allegiant Stadium design, as well as the Sphere in Las Vegas at the Venetian. So they've narrowed it down to those two options, Populous and Manica. So we'll have to see what he ends up doing. It's funny. Anytime I post about Mark Donovan or Clark Hunt, because I have the article, the post up in front of me, and then the comments are off to the side. Boy, a lot of you guys are not going to forgive these two guys ever. I get it. Not going to tell you how you should feel about it. But look, I mean, you cannot deny one bit. Here's my golden rule for business. I'll never fault a business for wanting to improve and find ways to generate more money, even if it's 1% higher than what it was before. Now, I know there are some things that people just feel are completely outrageous, like the NFL requiring you to be subscribed to however many streaming services so you can watch football these days, which is interesting because a lot of people are not allowed to promote multiple streaming platforms. You have to exclusively be signed on to one. I know the NFL's not, doing a sponsorship per se, but still, I mean, for them to have multiple partnerships with multiple streaming platforms, that is that's interesting. That is very interesting, but neither here nor there. Clark Hunt didn't drop the ball. Missouri and Casey Moe did. See, John, I disagree. I don't think that's fair because this Jackson County specifically, they were not given a great proposal. Look, I know this is not the greatest example, but this is politics at the end of the day. I know a lot of people vote with political lines, but if you're truly one of those middle of the road people, you're not blue or red. And if there's a presidential candidate, if there's a governor, if there's a mayor in your town that's up for election, you're not going to just vote for someone that does not logistically explain how they want to make all of their policies come to fruition. You want to hear them out and hear what they have to say, answer the tough questions, and you be your own judge and decide if you think those things are realistic and possible and good for your community. The Chiefs and the Royals, specifically the Royals, they did not give Jackson County a good reason to vote yes. And by the way, keep in mind, this is around the same time Jackson County had been dealing with these terrible numbers on local housing and whatnot. I mean, and that's a whole Frank White situation there. A property tax, to be exact. It just wasn't a good situation at all. I mean, I get it wasn't a raise in sales tax. It was just to renew the existing sales tax. But the logistics of moving downtown were not very well explained. The Royals did a really terrible job of explaining all that. And I'll get to the Royals shortly because there is a lot of news this week regarding the Royals and what they might do. In fact, let's get into that right now because the Kansas City Royals, they've been, seems like they're narrowing down their options. It seems like they're actually making progress in picking a site. They did announce on, I believe it was on Tuesday, the Royals announced they are no longer interested in Overland Park, Kansas, specifically 119th and Null. Now, let's keep something in mind. The state of Kansas had a very strict deadline to where they wanted an answer from the Chiefs and the Royals before January 1st, technically, before the end of 2025. Apparently, and there are some reports on this, apparently the Royals were ready to make a move. It's just that the Chiefs kind of beat them to the punch first. The Royals were still trying to figure things out. And after January 1st, the Royals did reach out to the state of Kansas, asked for an extension on the Star bonds. And Kansas said, no, we had a deadline. We gave you 6 extra months. You had your chance. So for the Royals to say, yeah, we're no longer interested in 119th and Null. No, this is not the Royals no longer being interested in 119th and Null. Kansas rejected you on January 1st. This is like asking a girl out to prom and she says no to you, and then 2 days later, you're like, you know what? I never wanted to take her out anyway. That's exactly what this is. This is 100% what this is. You did not say no to 119th and null. 119th and null, specifically the state of Kansas, said no to you. Let's make that very clear right now. And by the way, that's not the only location that said no to the Royals. North Kansas City came out earlier this month, and they've made it very clear they're no longer interested in the Royals. Look, the Royals have dropped the ball on this. I don't know what they really wanted to do. It really sounds like they wanted the Overland Park deal to happen. And look, I'll say this, obscure location, but there is an entertainment district right across the street, which is what John Sherman wants. Now, it's not downtown Overland Park. It's not downtown Kansas City. It's technically across the street from downtown Leawood. It would be in Overland Park, but across the street would be Leawood, which is a whole, one chaotic disaster that was diverted was wondering how Overland Park police and Leawood police would have handled all that traffic for pregame and postgame. I think it's a good thing we prevented that scenario. Because that was a disaster just to even think about. Now, I will say this, because of the land there and all the parking garages, now I don't think they would have kept all the parking garages, but I think you would have seen a lot of them still stick around. That would have been a great site as far as the land goes. But that's not downtown Kansas City. It's an obscure part of the Kansas City area. It's part of the suburbs, which nothing's wrong with that. With the Dallas Cowboys, the San Francisco 49ers, the Jets, the Giants. There are a lot of teams that do not play in the exact city that's in the title of their name. Like, for example, Dallas Cowboys. They're not actually in Dallas. They're in Arlington. The 49ers are in Santa Clara. That's where the Super Bowl. The Super Bowl is not in San Francisco. The Super Bowl is going to take place in Santa Clara. So there's a lot of that going on with some sports teams. So nothing wrong with an obscure location like Overland Park, but I just don't know in a medium market like Kansas City, would that kind of thing work? I guess it's working for Sporting, at least it has, but that's because they were winning a lot when they started playing in KCK. I think that really plays a bigger factor more than anything else. Now, as far as the Royals go, they're really down to just one option, and that one option is called Washington Square Park. You guys know me. I have always said that is the worst candidate for the Royals. Why? That is a very small location. And listen, you guys have even told me that you guys have passed by the area, and you've seen how small that area is in agreement with me. The only way that can really be fixed is if they negotiate with a couple of the buildings nearby and they move things over. That's one possibility. What we've seen with the Royals are not the best with negotiations. We saw it in the Crossroads situation for the vote. The other thing to just kind of be aware of right now, it is the most southern part of the downtown area. So I don't know about you guys, but the River Market, the middle of downtown with PNL, Bartle Hall, the T-Mobile Center, and then, going as far south as Union Station and Crown Center. I consider all of that part of the downtown Kansas City area. So this would be basically the most southern part of the Kansas City, downtown Kansas City region. I will say this, because I was at Crown Center. I've been in Crown Center a couple of times in the last couple of years. One of them was for a Christian Okoye book signing, which you can actually see right behind me right there. And then I just said, hey, why not? I have not been here in years. Let me just walk around and check out the place. Dude, that place was dead. It's not what it used to be. So would a potential move to Washington Square Park help revive Crown Center, I mean, listen, nostalgia is a popular thing. And whenever there's an area like Crown Center that's, let's be honest, it's faded away over the years, it is sad to see. I think this would be great if you are the owners of Crown Center. I think this creates a lot of opportunities for Crown Center, as well as Union Station. Not that Union Station was dying per se, especially around this time when the Chiefs are in the playoffs. Usually, they always have these displays for the playoffs, and everyone is there checking them out, especially on the weekends. So Union Station's doing well, and I think this will help them even more. So there are some positives to moving to Washington Square Park. I just think if they can figure out, if they can negotiate with a couple of the big buildings nearby, because that park itself alone is not going to work. There's no way in hell it's going to work. I've been there. I've seen it with my own eyes. They've got to negotiate with the buildings nearby to figure that out. And if they do, you got yourself a home run, no pun intended. You absolutely have yourself a good location for downtown baseball. Might not have been the first or even the second consideration for downtown baseball, but it is. Right now, it's all you have. What options do the Royals have right now? It's literally either Washington Square Park, or the other option is stay at the Truman Sports Complex, which they've already made it clear they're done with the Truman Sports Complex, but I guess we can't dismiss it completely until they make a final decision. And given how tough of a path this has been for the Royals up to this point, I don't think we can completely dismiss staying at Kauffman right now. Like that has to be worst case scenario, the bottom backup plan for you. It has to be. Absolutely has to be. Just weird to say in 5 years, no more NFL in Missouri. Yeah, that is really strange. That's, I don't know, man. Look, I know there's a whole nother podcast we can dive into all of that, but yeah, that's crazy. I think they end up with the original plan next to T-Mobile Center. So here's the thing, Brad. I mean, that was heavily rejected. The only way that's possible, because I know Mayor Quentin Lucas is now talking about, helping put money in there, and this would help prevent a vote. Because I will say this, I liked the idea you're talking about where they were across the street from the T-Mobile Center. I like that idea better than Washington Square Park, but I still would need to know how logistically that would all work, especially with traffic. Listen, traffic is pretty chaotic when there's a big event at PNL or at T-Mobile Center or at Bartle Hall, which is not too far from that area. So how in the hell would you make it work out with a baseball stadium? That I have no idea. If they can be more transparent and prove that this is possible, and also be honest and negotiate with those business owners there and give it a second chance for a vote, I could see it passing. That's the only way I see it passing. Dan says, well, I personally think the Washington Square Park location checks the most overall boxes for diverse stakeholders and objectives. The Blue Cross Blue Shield building that was vacant in the middle of the proposed site was successfully sold in September to a multi-family apartment developer based out of Wichita. So that site is far less feasible now. Okay, I'll take your word on that because I did not know that. I'm aware of that building that you're talking about. See, this is the thing. The Royals have proven they're not very good at negotiating here. So we'll have to figure out what happens. Jason says the ramps to 670 by Bartle are already wild, short, and fast. I know what you're talking about. Depending how you get in and out of downtown, and I know downtown streets can be very confusing. I mean, listen, Kansas City's downtown is confusing. There are other downtowns that are even more confusing. But I think I know which one you're referring to. Those entrance ramps to 35, 670, wherever. Oh boy, better be paying attention on the road. I'll be honest with you. My biggest fear in those situations sometimes is driving in front of a teenager that's texting and driving. Because let's be honest, teens do that. I'm not saying adults don't. Some of them do. My biggest fear is like, whoever's behind me, please pay the hell attention. Please pay attention. For my sake and for yours. Super Bowl 60 deserves a sports book built for the moment, and DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of Super Bowl 60, puts you right in the center of the biggest game of the year. And when anything can happen during the Super Bowl, DraftKings has your back with early exit. Meaning if a player in your NFL eligible prop bet goes down in the first half, you will still get paid out in cash immediately once your bet settles. No bonus bets, no waiting. And as we look ahead to Super Bowl 60, there are a couple of big storylines that I really like. The big one, the two coaches, Mike Vrabel, Mike McDonald. In my opinion, these two should be 1 and 2 for Coach of the Year. And these two coaches turned around teams that missed the playoffs last year and got them to the Super Bowl this year. Another big storyline is Seahawks quarterback Sam Darnold, who has now become the first quarterback from his draft class to go to a Super Bowl. This guy has played for 5 different teams in his 8-year career. After a roller coaster career for him, he is now on his way to his first ever Super Bowl. Super Bowl 60 will be a great one, and if you're new to DraftKings, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if your bet wins. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use my promo code ChiefZone. That's code ChiefZone to turn $5 into $300 in bonus bets if your bet wins. In partnership with DraftKings, the crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. Connecticut, call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino in Kansas, wager tax pass-through may apply in Illinois. 21 and over in most states. Void in Ontario. Restrictions apply. Bet must win to receive bonus bets which expire in 7 days. Minimum odds required. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/audio. Limited time offer.
All right, moving right along here on this Wednesday night. Some news coming out of the NFL awards. We learned tonight that Creed Humphrey is a nominee for the NFL Protector of the Year award. Now, keep in mind, this is the inaugural year for the Protector of the Year award. And I think a lot of people are eager about this one because how is it going to work? What's the voting process going to be like? How is the winner going to be determined? What factors are going to come into this? Is this going to be more of a subjective thing? Are there going to be stats behind this one? How is that all going to work out? And I'll give you some stats on Creed Humphrey right now. This guy allowed 1 sack all year. That was against Denver on the road around mid-November this year. He only allowed 8 pressures this season. Committed just 2 penalties, and according to Pro Football Focus, had an efficiency blocking rating of 99.3. Damn near perfect. He was 7 snaps shy of 1,100 snaps this season. You know, I hear, and look, hopefully I'm not jinxing him on any of this here, but when I think of Creed Humphrey, you know who he reminds me of? He does remind me a lot of Casey Wakeman. And look, the Chiefs have had a lot of great centers over the years. They had Tim Grunhard. They had Casey Wakeman, Mitch Morse, Rodney Hudson. I can't remember if Rodney Hudson played guard or both guard and center during his time in Kansas City. I think he did play some center in Kansas City, but don't quote me on that. And, you know, I was a little bummed out when Mitch Morse moved on because I was really hoping he would stick around for a long time. Yeah, Mike Webster. A lot of great centers over the years. Creed Humphrey, he is special in his own way. But he does remind me a lot of Casey Wakeman, and the fact that, and like I said, I hope I'm not jinxing him, but has Creed Humphrey ever missed the game? Now, being pulled from the game or not playing a game because, you know, they want a backup play, that does not count. That doesn't count as missing a game per se. I feel like Creed's always been available for Kansas City. I can't recall when he has not been available, even for one snap. I feel like he's always been on the field whenever he is needed. Now, has he been pulled from games? Yes. When games are out of reach, or like last year when the Chiefs had the 1 seed locked up against Denver, they pulled Creed Humphrey and the rest of the starting offensive line after a 3-and-out, a 3-and-out series, basically. The way Creed Humphrey's playing, if Creed Humphrey retired today, I think he'd be a Hall of Famer. Would he be a first ballot Hall of Famer? Probably not. And I know there's a lot of debate going on about that right now. But at the pace Creed Humphrey is going, he's got a great opportunity to become a first ballot Hall of Famer down the road. And that's very difficult for offensive linemen. Offensive linemen just don't get the love and the attention that the other positions get. They just don't. Offensive linemen do a whole lot and get the least amount of recognition for it. The only time they get recognition is when they're doing bad. When you're doing great, you don't get talked about much. Remember Juwan Taylor had that nice little 3-4 game stretch? Nobody had anything to say about Juwan Taylor for a little bit. That was a good thing for Juwan Taylor, because he's always being talked about. So for Creed Humphrey to be a nominee, I'm glad to see this. He 100% deserves this. I remember when the Chiefs revamped that entire offensive line after Super Bowl 55, there was this big concern of what the offensive line would look like. And boy, they absolutely scored big, getting Creed Humphrey in the 2nd round, getting Trey Smith in the 6th round. They signed Joe Thuney, who's now doing great things with Chicago. And hopefully they got themselves a long-term solution in Josh Simmons. We'll see what ends up happening with right tackle. But man, Creed Humphrey is the guy that you want on your team for a very, very long time. That's the type of guy you always want on your football team. That's the guy you want protecting your quarterback. And I think this guy's going to have a career where he's going to have, at some point, 10,000 consecutive snaps, which is not easy to do. I remember Casey Wakeman did it before he rode off into the sunset. So hopefully we get to see more of Creed Humphrey, much, much more of Creed Humphrey, because I don't think he's hit his prime yet. I think he's about to reach that point of his career. He signed a big contract, and, you know, I know the Chiefs have given out a lot of big contracts recently over the years. Creed has been worth it. 100% worth it. And I hope he continues to do great things and ends his career with the Kansas City Chiefs. I did want to weigh in on Matt Nagy for a moment here. Now, I mentioned this on Monday's podcast, but I'll say it on here again very briefly. When Andy Reid was doing that press conference, the only two things he was interested in talking about were Eric Bieniemy and Matt Nagy. And he was trying real, even when the question that he was answering had nothing to do with Matt Nagy, he would try to find a way to spin it around to Matt Nagy and just basically endorse him for becoming a head coach. Now, as you all know, unless some crazy thing happens and either the Patriots or the Seahawks fire their coach, which I doubt, we've had 10 head coaching vacancies this year. 8 of them have been filled. 8 have been filled. The Cleveland Browns became the latest team to hire a head coach. Right before that was the Buffalo Bills. So there are 2 head coaching vacancies left. The Las Vegas Raiders and the Arizona Cardinals, who Matt Nagy has interviewed with, but only was part of the first round of interviews. I think with the Raiders, and there have been a lot of rumors on this, but I think it's very clear they want Clint Kubiak. If they don't get Clint Kubiak, they basically got screwed over, because this is who they've been waiting on. Everyone else was hired while they were zeroing in on Clint Kubiak. Meanwhile, while there are 2 head coaching positions open, right now, there are 8 offensive coordinator positions vacant, at least officially vacant. I would like to think the New York Giants offensive coordinator position is open. As of right now, it is held by Tim Kelly officially. But if you go to the New York Giants website on the coaching staff page, all they have is just John Harbaugh. That's the only coach listed on their coaching staff. So perhaps Tim Kelly is unofficially out of New York. So let's just say there are 9 openings right now. You have the Jets, who just fired their offensive coordinator, the Ravens, the Browns, the Steelers, the Broncos, who just fired their offensive coordinator, the Raiders, that's 6 on the AFC side. On the NFC side, you have the Eagles, you have the Cardinals, who are still looking for their head coach, and you have the New York Giants, who, as of now, they have Tim Kelly, but that probably is going to change very soon. Is Matt Nagy going to get hired to be anyone's offensive coordinator right now? As far as we know, Nagy's only been interviewed by one team for their offensive coordinator position, and that one team is the Philadelphia Eagles. I mean, I can't remember the name of their previous offensive coordinator. If that's who they hated, bro, Nagy ain't going to survive. There's no way Nagy's going to survive Philly. There's just no way. Kevin Patillo was his name, by the way. Thank you. Look, I didn't think I'd be saying this. I kind of feel bad for Matt Nagy. Maybe a lot of you guys don't, and that's okay. I kind of feel bad for Matt Nagy. Who's going to hire him? I mean, look, let's use our brains here. There was only one team that seriously considered him for a head coach, and that was the Tennessee Titans. Their other option was Robert Saleh. If you are an NFL coach, because it's usually the coaches that put together the coaching staff, it's not the owner, it's not the GM, it's the head coach that puts together a coaching staff. What head coach in the NFL is going to look at Matt Nagy and say, oh, you ranked 9th or less in total offense and 15th or less in points scored? You got worse every year with Patrick Mahomes as your quarterback? When he was in the top 6 with the previous OC 5 years in a row? I really hate to say it. Matt Nagy is going to have to, if he really wants to be an offensive coordinator, he's going to have to go to the college ranks. Otherwise, if college is not a serious option for him, you might have to go be a quarterback's coach again. And listen, I think he's a good quarterback's coach. I like what he did here in Kansas City. You want to talk to me about Matt Nagy, the QB coach? I'll say great things about that guy every day. Matt Nagy, the OC, I liked his first stint as the OC, way better than his second stint. But man, I don't know if a team's going to hire him as an OC. Robert says he's got to go to the UFL. If being a head coach in the UFL has value to you, he might do it. I guess he's got to prove himself somewhere. This is kind of turning into an Eric Bieniemy situation, except there's a difference. Eric Bieniemy did great things with the Chiefs and was passed up on for being a head coach. Matt Nagy was not a good offensive coordinator. I don't care how many times Andy Reid wants to say he deserves to be a head coach, or that he deserves to run his own show, or that he's a gem and teams are missing out on him. I don't care how many times Andy Reid says that. He's not a good OC. He might have to either just sit out a year and see what vacancies come up, or settle for a QB job, a quarterback's coaching job. That sounds crazy to say, but that's kind of where Matt Nagy's coaching path is as of this moment. Never thought I'd say this, but I kind of feel bad for him. Super Bowl 60 deserves a sportsbook built for the moment, and DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of Super Bowl 60, puts you right in the center of the biggest game of the year. And when anything can happen during the Super Bowl, DraftKings has your back with early exit. Meaning if a player in your NFL eligible prop bet goes down in the first half, you will still get paid out in cash immediately once your bet settles. No bonus bets, no waiting. And with Super Bowl 60 upon us, I'm going to give you my prediction for the big game. And I want to start with the coaches here. Mike Vrabel, Mike McDonald, the two guys who should be 1 and 2 in line for Coach of the Year this year. You know these two teams are very well coached. These two teams missed the playoffs last year, and now they're coming in hoping to win Super Bowl 60. And from the quarterback's perspective, you have Sam Darnold of the Seahawks, who's had this great resurgence over the last 2 years. And then you have, on the Patriots side, Drake May, who's had a great season in his second year in the league, reaching a Super Bowl, is an MVP candidate. Both of these quarterbacks have had a great season, and I think they will both have a great game in Super Bowl 60. But I think the biggest difference maker in this football game is going to be the wide receiver for the Seattle Seahawks, Jackson Smith-Njigba, and in my opinion, this guy is not human. He makes nearly every catch thrown his way, and defenders deliver these big hits to him, and he manages to hold on every single time. After corralling almost 1,800 receiving yards and 10 touchdowns in the regular season, JSN is coming off a big NFC Championship game where he had 10 catches for more than 150 yards and a touchdown. JSN is my pick to win MVP for Super Bowl 60. I think he's going to have a massive performance. I think he'll have at least 2 touchdowns in this one. So I am betting on JSN to be the MVP for Super Bowl 60. And I think the Seahawks will win this game 34-24. Super Bowl 60 will be a great one. And if you're new to DraftKings, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if your bet wins. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use my promo code ChiefZone. That's code ChiefZone to turn $5 into $300 in bonus bets if your bet wins. In partnership with DraftKings, the crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. Connecticut, call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino in Kansas, wager tax pass-through may apply in Illinois. 21 and over in most states. Void in Ontario. Restrictions apply. Bet must win to receive bonus bets which expire in 7 days. Minimum odds required. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/audio. Limited time offer.
All right, final segment of the show here. As I'm sure you have all heard by now, Bill Belichick is not going to the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Now, I said earlier, I did want to get into Vahe Gregorian because Vahe, who has been a guest on this podcast, it's been a long time, but he's been on this podcast a couple times before. He is a voter for the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And he admitted today that he did not vote for Bill Belichick. Now, I'll get to Vahe in a moment, but I want to talk about Bill Polian, the guy who is receiving a lot of attention for this right now. Let me set the stage here real quick and just kind of explain the way the process this all works. There's only a limited number of votes you can give, if I'm not mistaken, from Pro Football Hall of Fame voters. And in order to get elected into the Pro Football Hall of Fame, in order to get elected into Canton, you must receive at least 40 of the 50 votes. Belichick received 39, so he was one shy of getting in. So the way I see it right now, and the Pro Football Hall of Fame issued a statement, I'll get to that shortly. Belichick was one vote away. 11 people did not approve of Belichick to Canton in his first year of eligibility. Vahe Gregorian put out a column explaining why he voted the way he did. Now, in order to read the article, it is behind a paywall. I don't care if it's just 99 cents or $1.99, whatever it is. The Kansas City Star does not deserve my money, not even for $2. Listen, I'm all for spending your money however you want to spend it. I've always been in the belief that even if you have a lot of money, you don't even give $2 if that is not worth paying $2 for. I'm sorry, the Kansas City Star, while I think they have a couple of really good writers in Vahe Gregorian and Sam McDowell, they are not worthy of my $2. They're just not. I'm sorry, they're not. But from what I've gathered and people who have reacted to Vahe's story, some people have shared highlights of the article. Vahe explained that the reason he voted the way he didn't vote against Bill Belichick. He voted because there are a certain number of votes that you can only give, and he really wanted to vote for the senior nominees that were eligible this year. Senior nominees, when they become eligible for the Pro Football Hall of Fame, they usually do not get an opportunity to be eligible ever again. Like when you're a senior nominee and you're a finalist, this might be your one and last hope to making it into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And I really think they need to change that up because there are a lot of great players in the past who are not in the Pro Football Hall of Fame, and they're basically forgotten about it at this rate. I mean, if I'm not mistaken, I think Neil Smith or Duron Cherry, one of those two, was part of the wide pool of senior candidates. Boy, if Neil Smith is a senior candidate, I mean, this guy played in the 90s. Get out of here with that. That's got to change. Because last year, only 4 people went into the Hall of Fame. Jared Allen was one of them. And listen, I like Jared Allen and everything he did in his career. Obviously, being a former Chief, a little partial there, but I was a little surprised Jared Allen was a first ballot Hall of Famer. I was listen, all of these finalists that don't make it into the Pro Football Hall of Fame, they're all worthy of it. But there's only so many who can get in. Not everyone can get in. And I think they need to change that number and make it so there's at least 10 nominees that get in every year. Because if you're going to elect just 4, dude, there are going to be a lot of people who will not be alive when they do end up getting in. And the guys who are not in right now that maybe played great in the 70s or 80s or even the 90s, they're going to be forgotten about in 20 years. Because guess what? I'm trying to come up with a non-controversial, whoever the Peyton Manning is 20 years from now or 30 years from now that's going to be eligible, like Patrick Mahomes, he's obviously going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. Travis Kelce is going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. I mean, there are going to be a lot of guys who are playing great football right now, but they might be forgotten about too in about 40, 50 years. Same thing with guys who played 40, 50 years ago. They're kind of being put by the wayside, forgotten about. Too bad. We're moving on. Now, Bill Polian, to go back to him, people are pointing out his bias because he was the Colts general manager and president, and obviously there was a big rivalry between the Colts and the Patriots, kind of like what you're seeing with the Chiefs and the Bills right now. Bill Polian, according to reports, it's funny, there are a lot of, like, Peter King's on the record cursing in quotes, not any audio of him, but it's crazy. Bill Polian was credited for leading the charge against Bill Belichick. Then Matt Verderami, who, if I'm not mistaken, is a local guy, he actually reached out to Bill and said that's absolutely categorically false. He absolutely voted for Belichick. Then ESPN last night lands an exclusive interview with him, and they have him on the record saying he does not remember if he voted for Belichick or not. And then this morning on Sirius XM NFL Radio, Polian then says he absolutely did vote for Belichick. Okay, he's on record saying he doesn't remember. suddenly he remembers that he did vote for him. Something's going on here, man. Like this does not make sense. This does not make sense. Look, I appreciate Vahe's explanation, and I can agree, not agree, but understand to an extent. I'll say that much. But Bill Belichick should be in the Hall of Fame. Don't give me this BS about Spygate, Deflategate, not being friendly with the media. This is not a character Hall of Fame. This is the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Jim Tyre should have been in by now. Well, again, what he did was awful, and maybe CTE was something that was not known about at the time. But in terms of the Hall of Fame, Jim Tyre should be in. Belichick has some controversies and was not friendly to the media. That's not a reason to hold him out of the Hall of Fame. I mean, we got one explanation as to why Belichick's not in. What about the other 10 explanations? That I don't know right now. That I have no idea. John is saying, is it because Belichick is with that college girl? Obviously, you're reporting to Jordan Hudson. Listen, as weird and as creepy as that is, could that be a reason why they're holding it against him? I don't know. They shouldn't. That's not a reason to hold Belichick out of the Hall of Fame. Look, he got 39. Here's my thing with the Hall of Fame. I don't care. I'm not big on whether or not you made it as a first ballot Hall of Famer. What matters is you made it. But Belichick, an 8-time Super Bowl champion, 6 times as a head coach, 2 as an assistant, you got to be in. I'm sorry, you've got to be in. There's no excuses for this one. Last thing here. The Bills probably had the most intriguing head coaching vacancy this month. They fired Sean McDermott, and in a little over a week later, they have decided who their next head coach is going to be. It's going to be their offensive coordinator, Joe Brady. Oh boy. I think they really wanted Phillip Rivers. Sounds like they did. That would have been very interesting to watch. Listen, I will say this. When Joe Brady became the offensive coordinator for the Buffalo Bills, and that happened mid-season, Josh Allen got better. I mean, Josh Allen, my biggest criticism of Josh Allen several years ago was that he was a turnover machine. And I think Josh Allen has improved a lot since then. Ever since Joe Brady became the offensive coordinator in mid-November, replacing Ken Dorsey, Josh Allen has been a way better quarterback. His turnover numbers have dropped drastically. Now, this past season was not really the greatest year for Buffalo's offense, even though James Cook was number 1 in rushing this year. I know there were a lot of complaints out of Buffalo about Joe Brady. The Bills had a hot landing spot for a head coaching opening because of Josh Allen. And I would argue Lamar Jackson would be right behind. The Ravens specifically should be right behind because of Lamar Jackson. Now, the problem is, in a press conference last week, Terry Pagula and Brandon Mead do a press conference, and Terry Pagula basically threw the entire coaching staff under the bus, saying that the coaching staff wanted Keon Coleman and Brandon Mead played ball. So the coaching staff you threw under the bus, which Joe Brady was a part of, is now your head coach. That introductory press conference is going to be one to watch because there are going to be a lot of interesting questions asked by the Buffalo media, considering the comments made by Terry Pagula last week. And by the way, the reactions from Bills fans, not very good, not very positive. They are not happy that Joe Brady is their next head coach. Look, I don't think Buffalo did themselves any favor with that press conference last week. They didn't. This is a team that should have had every coach knocking on their door for an opportunity to coach Josh Allen. I remember mentioning that if the Bills somehow were to lose to Jacksonville in the wild card round, they would then fire McDermott, and I think that would have led to Harbaugh going to Buffalo. And then Buffalo won. And I said, wait, maybe Harbaugh's going to wait one more week for that Buffalo job. But he accepted the Giants job, and I thought, ooh, he might have went too early. And then what do you know? I think on the same day or 24 hours later, Buffalo loses to Denver, and McDermott gets fired a couple days later. And I think to myself, wait a minute, Harbaugh might have jumped the gun on this one, because no one else was going to hire a head coach until Harbaugh picked a place. Harbaugh was going to be the first domino to fall for the head coaching cycle. But then when everyone saw that press conference, I think it's safe to say Harbaugh made the right move avoiding Buffalo. Only way Allen gets a ring is to leave Buffalo? Probably so. Look, they've been winning a lot of games. I know there's that stat out there. Teams with a playoff win in 6 consecutive years, there are only 4 of them. The Chiefs, the Patriots, and the Cowboys. Those units all won at least one. So those are all dynasties, by the way. The Bills are the 4th team. The Bills don't have a trophy. They don't have a Lombardi trophy. So they've been winning playoff games, at least one for the last 6 years. Each of the last 6 years, to be clear. But they don't have a trophy to show for it. They haven't even been to a Super Bowl. I mean, Josh Allen was in tears because of a divisional round loss. I mean, look, I said this about the Bengals last year, and I think now the Bills fit this bill. No pun intended. 3rd time I've said that today. The Bills are going to be the most intriguing team going into the 2026 season. How is that football team going to operate with Josh Allen as their quarterback, with Joe Brady as the head coach moving forward? Is that a team that can make it back to the playoffs? Right now, because the betting odds for next year's Super Bowl came out after Championship Sunday, Buffalo is at a plus 1,000. The Seahawks and the Rams are at plus 950 tied. Look, people still feel high about Buffalo, but man, if things don't go well for them this offseason, that number is going to drop. And listen, the odds makers don't determine who wins the Super Bowl. That's just a projection. But it is very telling. And I kind of wonder, with other AFC teams on the rise right now, like Denver, like New England, Jacksonville, maybe Houston, if CJ Stroud can figure it out, the playoff field on the AFC side's about to become much more difficult for Buffalo. Oh, but Farzine, it's also going to become more difficult for Kansas City. Yes, it is. It's going to be very difficult for Patrick Mahomes to get his 4th championship. But Patrick Mahomes has, like I just mentioned, 3 Super Bowls before. He's targeting his 4th. Allen hasn't even reached a Super Bowl. So yes, the AFC playoff picture for the next 5 years is going to be much crowded and much more competitive than it's been the last 5 years. But at least Mahomes has 3 rings. Allen doesn't even have an AFC championship win. And it's about to become more difficult to win a Super Bowl, let alone an AFC championship game. I don't think Buffalo's ever had the number 1 seed. Boy, I'll tell you what, man. You better start aiming for that number 1 seed. Not that being at home guarantees anything anyway, because we've already seen that in the playoffs a couple of times with Buffalo. But that helps more than it hurts. Honestly, at this rate, Buffalo desperately needs that number 1 seed, especially nowadays, since the number 1 seed is the only team that gets the bye week in the playoffs. And I don't want to say the Bills window is closing. I still think it's open, but it is close to getting shut. You better hope that Joe Brady is going to be your Cinderella story. Because as of right now, I don't think that's the path Buffalo was expecting to have with Joe Brady. I mean, Phillip Rivers opted out. Brian Dable just didn't seem interested. This Buffalo team has Josh Allen, and the best they could do was Joe Brady, whose head coach was just fired. Good luck. Good luck with that. All right, that'll do it for this episode of the Chiefs Zone Podcast. My name is Farzin Vasugian. A lot we unpacked here on this episode of the Chiefs Zone Podcast. I appreciate all of you joining us for the last 90 minutes. If you guys enjoyed any part of this podcast, please let a friend know about it. And if you miss any part of the show, it's about to be archived shortly on Facebook, YouTube, X, Apple, Spotify, anywhere where you can catch a podcast. I will be back this Friday, 5 p.m. Central Time for the Red Friday Q&A live chat. Until then, enjoy your week. Stay warm. I will talk to you all later. Peace out.